The morning sky above Zephyria burned orange and red as the enemy ships rained fire from space. Cathara pressed her blue hands against the cool stone wall of the underground shelter and felt the vibrations of each explosion above. The whole planet shook with every blast. "How many of us are left?" she asked Elder Voss, who sat hunched over a glowing data pad. His normally bright green skin had turned pale with fear. "Maybe 2 million across all the continents," he said without looking. "Well, yesterday it was 3 million. The day before that it was 5 million. Cathara closed her large dark eyes and tried not to think about the numbers. 3 weeks ago there had been 50 million Zelani on their beautiful world. 3 weeks ago, the Vorthak had arrived. The Vorthak Empire had come without warning. Their massive gray ships had appeared in the sky like storm clouds that never moved. At first, the Zelani thought they might be explorers or traders from another world. The Zelani had always been peaceful people who welcomed visitors, but the Vorthak had not come to trade or explore. They had come to take everything. The ceiling above them shook again as another bomb fell somewhere in the city. Dust rained down on the 30 Zelani who huddled in this small underground room. Children cried softly while their parents held them tight. Everyone was hungry. Everyone was scared. "Elder Voss," said a young Zelani named Reth. "What about the old signal? The one from the ancient times?" Voss looked up from his datapad. His eyes were tired but curious. "What signal?" "The distress call protocol. My grandfather told me stories about it. He said our ancestors created a special message to send to the stars if we ever faced extinction. A cry for help that any good species might understand." The elder's ears twitched the way they did when he was thinking hard. "I remember those stories too. But Reth, we have no idea if anyone is out there. We have never met another species besides the Vorthak." "But what if there are others?" Reth pressed on. "What if there are species out there who might help us? Good species who would care that we are dying?" Another explosion rocked the shelter. This one was closer. Much closer. The lights flickered and went out for a moment before the emergency power kicked in. "We are going to die anyway," said Cathara quietly. "The Vorthak will find us eventually. They always do. What do we have to lose?" Elder Voss stared at her for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. "You are right. We have nothing left to lose. It took them 4 hours to find the old transmission equipment in the deepest part of the shelter. The machines were ancient, but still working. Voss and 2 other elders worked together to remember the old protocols their grandparents had taught them. The message must be simple," Voss explained as his fingers moved over the control panels. "Mathematical patterns that show intelligence, coordinates so they can find us, and a plea for help that any caring being would understand." "What if they are like the Vorthak?" asked a young mother holding her infant child. "What if they come here only to hurt us more? Then we will die the same way we are dying now," said Cathara. "But what if they are different? What if they are good?" The transmission array hummed to life. Ancient circuits that had waited for generations finally had a purpose. The signal was simple but powerful. It contained the mathematical constant, for pi to show intelligence. It contained their exact location in space, and it contained a message in both Zelani language and simple mathematical concepts. "We are the last," the message said. "Our world burns. Our people die. If there are good beings among the stars, please help us. Please remember that we existed. Please remember that we tried to be kind." The signal shot out from Zephyria at the speed of light. It traveled past their burning cities and through the Vorthak fleet that surrounded their world. It raced through empty space toward distant stars that might hold other worlds, other species, other hopes. Light years away, the signal passed by dead worlds and empty space. It traveled for what seemed like forever through the cold dark between stars. The Zelani who sent it would never know where it went or who might receive it. But far across the galaxy, in a region of space the Zelani had never dreamed of, the signal reached a small research ship called the Endeavor. The ship belonged to a species that called themselves humans. They had been exploring space for centuries, always looking for signs of other intelligent life. Captain Sarah Chen was drinking coffee in her quarters when the communication officer called her to the bridge. Captain, you need to see this, the officer said. We are picking up an artificial signal. It is not random noise. Someone built this transmission. Chen hurried to the bridge and looked at the data streaming across the screens. Her trained eyes picked out the mathematical patterns immediately. This is a distress call, she said quietly. Someone is asking for help. The signal is very far away, Captain, said the navigation officer. The source is at least 40 light years from here, but the message is clear. They are under attack. Chen stared at the numbers on her screen. 40 light years was a long way. Too far for most species to travel quickly, but humans had always been good at doing impossible things when someone needed help. Send this signal to Earth immediately, she ordered. Full priority transmission, and plot a course for the source coordinates. Captain, said her first officer carefully, we do not know anything about this species. We do not know if we can trust them. We do not even know if they are still alive. Sarah Chen looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. Somewhere out there, someone was dying. Someone had been brave enough to call out into the dark and ask for help. Then we will find out, she said. The message from Captain Chen reached Earth in less than 6 hours. By the time the sun rose over Geneva, every important human leader was awake and reading the same report. The distress signal had been confirmed by 3 different research stations. The translation was clear. Somewhere in space, an entire species was being wiped out. General Patricia Hawkins stood in the war room deep beneath the United Earth Defense Headquarters. Around her, screens showed star maps, ship locations, and tactical data. But her attention was focused on the audio recording playing from the speakers. We are the last. Our world burns. Our people die. The voice had been created by computer, translation, but the desperation was real. Someone 40 light years away was calling for help and they were running out of time. How long would it take to get there? Asked President Martinez over the video link from Washington. Admiral Marcus Rivera stepped forward. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from the Centauri Wars. With our fastest ships, 36 hours if we push the jump. Drives to maximum. But that is dangerous. We could lose ships. How many ships do we have available? The president asked. 12 heavy cruisers, 8 destroyers, 4 medical ships, and 6 troop transports, Rivera replied. About 30 ships, total. But sir, we do not know what we are flying into. This could be a trap. General Hawkins spoke up. Marcus is right to be careful. But listen to that message again. These people are dying right now. Every hour we wait, more of them die. The room fell silent except for the hum of computers and air conditioning. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Humanity had spent 200 years exploring space, always hoping to find other intelligent life. Now they had found it, and it was being murdered. What do we know about this Vorthak Empire? Asked the president. Dr. Sarah Kim, the head of Alien Research, read from her tablet. Nothing. We have never heard of them. The Zelani signal mentions that the Vorthak came without warning and started killing immediately. No communication, no demands, just destruction. Genocide, said General Hawkins quietly. They are committing genocide. Admiral Rivera looked at the star charts again. Sir, if we do this, we are committing our entire rapid response fleet. If it is a trap, we could lose everything. And if it is not a trap, asked President Martinez, if it is real and we do nothing? The question hung in the air like smoke. Everyone in the room knew the answer. If they did nothing, an entire species would die while humanity watched from 40 light years away. I will go, said Rivera suddenly. Give me the fleet. Give me permission to jump immediately. We can figure out the details on the way. Marcus, said General Hawkins, you could be flying into a battle you cannot win. Then we will make them pay a price they will never forget, Rivera replied. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. Ma'am, I have been fighting for 30 years. I have never backed down from bullies, and I will not start now. President Martinez was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Do it. Take the fleet and go save those people. 3 hours later, the largest human fleet ever assembled was jumping towards Zephyria. Admiral Rivera stood on the bridge of his eye, Flagship the UES Indomitable, watching the stars blur past as they traveled faster than light. Around him, his officers prepared for battle against an enemy they had never seen. "Sir," said Commander Lisa Park, his second in command, "we are receiving updates from Captain Chen. She launched reconnaissance drones ahead of us. The data is not good." Rivera looked at the incoming reports on his command screen. His face grew darker with each line he read. 3 Vorthak fleets in orbit around the planet. Orbital bombardment has been going on for weeks. Most of the major cities are gone. "How many enemy ships?" asked Park. "At least 60, maybe more." Rivera touched the screen to zoom in on the tactical data. "They have us outnumbered 2-1. "Should we call for reinforcements?" Park asked. "There is no time," Rivera said. "Look at these population readings. The Zelani are dying by the thousands every day. If we wait for more ships, there will be no one left to save." The fleet jumped through space for 36 hours. During the journey, more reconnaissance data came in. The news got worse each time. The Vorthak were not just conquering the planet, they were systematically destroying everything. Cities, forests, even the oceans were being poisoned. "Why?" asked Lieutenant James Wu, the communications officer. "Why kill everything? Why not just take the planet?" "Because they can," said Rivera grimly. "Because no one has ever stopped them before." The final jump brought them to the edge of the Zephyria system. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go silent. The planet that should have been blue and green was brown and orange. Smoke covered entire continents. The Vorthak ships hung in orbit like vultures, occasionally firing down at the surface. "My God," whispered Commander Park. "We are too late." "No," said Rivera firmly. "We are exactly on time." He turned to his communications officer. "Signal the fleet. All ships to battle stations. We are going in." "Sir," said the tactical officer, "they have twice as many ships as we do." Rivera smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Then it will be a fair fight." He looked around at his bridge crew. These men and women had followed him through 3 wars. They trusted him. "People." Someone called for help. Someone reached across 40 light years and asked for heroes. Today we are going to be those heroes. On the surface of Zephyria, Kethara felt another explosion shake their underground shelter. The walls were cracking now. It would not be long before this hiding place was found. "Elder Voss," she said quietly, "do you think anyone heard our message?" The old Zelani looked up from his datapad. His eyes were sad but kind. "I do not know, child, but I am glad we tried." Above them, unknown, to the dying Zelani, human ships dropped out of hyperspace and prepared to turn the tide of war. The Vorthak fleet commander was reviewing daily kill reports when his sensors officer called out an alarm. "Commander Zektar, unknown ships are entering the system. 67 vessels approaching fast." Zektar looked up from his datapad with mild interest. His red eyes studied the tactical display. "Probably another Zelani evacuation attempt. Destroy them as usual." "Sir," the sensors officer said nervously, "these ships are not Zelani design. They are something we have never seen before." Before Zektar could respond, the unknown ships opened fire. Railgun rounds traveling at impossible speeds tore through 3 Vorthak orbital platforms in the first 10 seconds. The explosions lit up space like new stars. "What are those weapons?" Zektar shouted as his ship shook from a near miss. "Where did they come from?" Admiral Rivera watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as his fleet carved through the outer Vorthak defenses. The enemy ships were big and heavily armored, but they moved slowly, and their weapons were surprisingly weak. "Target their command, ships first," he ordered. "Take out their ability to coordinate." The human fleet split into 3 groups. The heavy cruisers went straight for the largest Vorthak vessels. The destroyers hit the orbital bombardment platforms. The medical ships stayed back, protected by a screen of fighters. Commander Park studied the enemy response patterns. "Sir, they are not adapting. They keep using the same tactics even though we are cutting them apart." "Arrogant," Rivera said. "They have been bullying peaceful species for so long. They forgot how to fight real soldiers. The UES Thunderbolt, one of the heavy cruisers, closed with a massive Vorthak dreadnought. Captain Elena Vasquez brought her ship in close, too close for the big enemy guns to track effectively. Her crew fired everything they had at point-blank range. "Hull breach on multiple decks," reported her tactical officer. "They are trying to ram us." "Let them try," Vasquez said calmly. "All power to forward shields. Prepare boarding pods." The Vorthak ship tried to crush the smaller human vessel, but the Thunderbolt slipped away at the last second. As the enemy ship passed overhead, 12 boarding pods launched from the Thunderbolt and attached to the Vorthak hull like metal parasites. "Boarding teams away," reported the Marine commander. "We will have their bridge in 15 minutes. This was something the Vorthak had never experienced. No species had ever tried to board their ships. They had always fought from a distance, with careful formations and predictable tactics. But humans did not follow those rules. On the surface of Zephyria, Cathara felt the ground shake differently. These were not the steady explosions of orbital bombardment. These were sharp, violent impacts followed by silence. "Something has changed," said Elder Voss. He was listening to their emergency radio. "The bombing has stopped." "Maybe the Vorthak are done with this area," said Reth hopefully. "No," said Voss quietly. "Listen." Through the static on the radio came a voice speaking in badly pronounced Zalani. "This is Admiral Rivera of the United Earth Defense Fleet. Any Zalani survivors, please respond. We are here to help." The shelter fell completely silent. Everyone stared at the radio as if it might explode. "Who is United Earth?" whispered the young mother holding her baby. "I do not know," said Voss. "But they said they are here to help." Cathara reached for the radio transmitter with shaking hands. "This is Cathara of the Zalani Council. We are alive. We are hiding. Who are you?" The answer came back immediately in that same, careful Zalani. "We are humans. We received your distress call. We are fighting the Vorthak ships above your planet. Can you tell us your location?" "Distress call?" Cathara looked at Elder Voss with wide eyes. "Someone actually heard our message? In orbit above them, the battle was turning into a rout." The Vorthak had never faced an enemy that fought like humans. Every time they formed up for a proper fleet engagement, human ships would break formation and attack from unexpected angles. Human fighters swarmed around the big Vorthak ships like angry insects. "Their boarding teams are inside the command ship," reported Commander Park. "They have taken the bridge and are downloading their computer systems." "Good," said Rivera. "I want to know everything about this Vorthak empire. Who they are, where they come from, what other species they have attacked." The Vorthak commander, Zektar, found himself trapped on his own bridge by creatures he had never imagined. The humans were smaller than Vorthak, but they moved with deadly precision. Their weapons were strange and effective. Worst of all, they seemed to feel no fear. "Who are you?" he demanded in broken galactic standard. "What species are you?" Sergeant Mike Torres, the Marine team leader, looked at the alien through his helmet display. "We are humans. We are from Earth. And you just made the biggest mistake of your life." "What mistake?" Zektar asked. "You hurt innocent people," Torres said simply. "And you asked for help where humans could hear you." The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the entire Vorthak fleet was either destroyed or captured. Not a single human ship had been lost, though several were damaged. Admiral Rivera opened a channel to the planet's surface. "This is Admiral Rivera to all Zalani survivors. The Vorthak fleet has been defeated. We are sending medical teams and supplies to the surface. Please identify your location so we can help you." Across the planet, from dozens of hidden shelters and underground bunkers, Zalani voices began responding. Each transmission was the same, grateful, amazed, and full of tears. "How many of us are left?" asked Cathara when the human medical team reached her shelter. Dr. Jennifer Hayes, the chief medical officer, checked her scanner readings. "We are finding survivors all over the planet. Maybe 800,000 people total. It could have been much worse." 800,000, repeated Elder Voss sadly. Out of 50 million. Dr. Hayes knelt down beside the old Zalani. I am sorry for your losses, but we are here now. We will make sure this never happens to you again. Why? Asked Cathara. Why did you come? We are strangers to you. You risked your lives for people you had never met. Dr. Hayes smiled. Because that is what humans do. When someone calls for help, we answer. Outside the shelter, human ships filled the sky. But these were not weapons of war. They were medical ships and supply vessels and troop transports full of relief supplies. For the first time in weeks, the Zalani looked up at the sky without fear. The distress call had been answered. Help had come from the stars. Captain Elena Vasquez walked through the ruins of what had once been New Zephyr, the largest city on Zephyria. Her combat boots crunched on broken glass and twisted metal. Behind her, a squad of Marines carefully searched through the rubble for survivors and evidence, Captain, called Sergeant Torres from inside a damaged building. You need to see this. Vasquez followed the voice into what remained of a large structure. The walls were covered with Zalani writing and strange symbols. Tables lined the rooms, but these were not normal tables. They had restraints on them. Dark stains covered the metal surfaces. What is this place? She asked. Torres pointed to a computer terminal that was still working. The screen showed medical data and research notes written in Vorthak script. We had the translator work on this, Captain. This was a research facility. They were experimenting on Zalani prisoners. Vasquez felt her blood turn cold as she read the translated reports. The Vorthak had been testing how much pain different Zalani could survive. They had been trying to find ways to make the killing more efficient. And the subjects had been children. Get me Admiral Rivera, she said in a voice that shook with anger. The communication came through quickly. What is it, Elena? Sir, we found something. The Vorthak were not just killing the Zalani. They were torturing them, experimenting on them. On children, Admiral. The silence on the radio lasted for 10 long seconds. When Rivera spoke again, his voice was different, harder. Document everything, Captain. Every file, every record, every piece of evidence. I want it all. Yes, sir, but Admiral, there is more. We interrogated some of the Vorthak prisoners. This is not the first time they have done this. They have destroyed dozens of species across the galaxy. They call it harvesting. Vasquez could hear Rivera taking deep breaths on the other end of the radio. How many other species, Elena? At least 30, sir, maybe more. They keep records of each one like hunting trophies. The news spread through the human fleet like wildfire. Every ship, every Marine, every medic learned what they had really stumbled into. This was not just one act of genocide. This was an empire, built on the systematic murder of innocent species. Major David Thompson was leading evacuation efforts near the southern continent when the news reached his unit. He was helping load wounded Zalani onto medical transports when his radio crackled. Major Thompson, this is Admiral Rivera. New orders. Yes, sir. Change of mission, Major. We are no longer just conducting rescue operations. We are now hunting every Vorthak on this planet. No prisoners unless they surrender immediately. No mercy for anyone who participated in war crimes. Thompson looked around at the Zalani refugees being loaded onto his ships. Many were children who had lost their parents. Others were adults who had watched their families die. Understood, Admiral. What about the Vorthak reinforcements? Let them come, Rivera said grimly. We will be waiting. The Vorthak relief fleet arrived 2 days later. Commander Dreknos commanded 68 warships, more than twice the size of the human fleet. He expected to find the unknown attackers retreating or begging for mercy. Instead, he found human ships waiting in perfect battle formation. Who are these creatures? Dreknos demanded as he studied the tactical display. Why are they not running? His sensors officer looked up nervously. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from them. Put it on the main screen. Admiral Rivera appeared on the Vorthak bridge display. His face was calm, but his eyes were like ice. This is Admiral Rivera of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You are guilty of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against sentience. Surrender immediately, or we will destroy you. Dreknos laughed. You have 30 ships, we have 68. You are outnumbered more than 2 to 1. I know, Rivera said simply. We counted your ships when you arrived. It will not be enough. The Vorta commander cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Destroy them all. But the humans had learned from the first battle. They had studied Vorthak tactics and weaknesses. More importantly, they were no longer fighting to rescue civilians. Now, they were fighting for revenge. The human fleet did not wait for the Vorthak to organize their attack. They struck first, hard and fast. The UES Indomitable led a direct assault on the Vorthak command ship, while the other human vessels scattered into small groups. Sir, reported Commander Park, they are trying to surround us. Good, Rivera said. That means we can hit them from all sides. The battle was different from the first one. The Vorthak fought harder because they finally understood they were facing a real threat. But the humans fought with something the Vorthak had never encountered before: moral fury. Every human in the fleet had seen the evidence of Vorthak war crimes. They had walked through the torture facilities. They had met the survivors. They had held Zelani children who had lost everything. Captain Vasquez brought the Thunderbolt alongside a Vorthak heavy cruiser and opened fire at point-blank range. This is for the children, she said, as her weapons tore through the enemy ship. Lieutenant Wu on the Indomitable was coordinating fighter attacks when a Vorthak battleship tried to ram his carrier. He calmly directed his pilots to target the enemy engines. Make them suffer, he told his squadron leaders. The Vorthak had always relied on fear and overwhelming force. They had never fought an enemy that refused to be afraid. They had never faced soldiers who fought not for conquest but for justice. Major Thompson was leading the ground assault on the last Vorthak base when his radio buzzed. Major, this is Admiral Rivera. How are you doing down there? We have them cornered, sir, Thompson replied as explosions echoed around him. They are asking to surrender. What are your orders regarding prisoners, Major? Thompson looked at the Vorthak facility ahead of him. His intelligence report said it contained more research labs and prison cells, more evidence of torture and murder. My orders are to accept surrender only from Vorthak who can prove they were not involved in war crimes, he said. So far, sir, we have not found any who qualify. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Vorthak relief fleet was completely destroyed. Every ship was either debris floating in space or captured as evidence for future war crimes trials. Admiral Rivera stood on his bridge and looked out at the wreckage. His communications officer approached him carefully. Sir, we are receiving transmissions from other systems. Word is spreading about what happened here. Several species are requesting our help. They say the Vorthak Empire has been threatening them too. Rivera nodded slowly. How many species? 12 so far, sir, but the number is growing. Then we have work to do, Rivera said. Signal Earth. Tell them we need more ships. Many more ships. On the surface of Zephyria, Cathara stood in the ruins of her home city and watched human ships landing with supplies and medical equipment. The humans moved with purpose and efficiency, but also with gentleness when dealing with Zelani survivors. Elder Voss, she said, what have we done? What do you mean, child? We called for help, but we did not just bring rescuers. We brought warriors. We brought justice. Voss looked up at the human ships filling the sky. Perhaps that is what the galaxy needed, Cathara. Perhaps that is exactly what we summoned. 6 months after the last Vorthak ship fled from Zephyria, Ambassador Cathara stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. Her blue skin had regained its healthy color, and her dark eyes no longer carried the haunted look of someone who had watched her world burn. The Great Council chamber held representatives from over 200 species. Most had never heard of humans before the Zephyria incident. Now they all wanted to know about the strange new species that had appeared from nowhere and destroyed the mighty Vorthak Empire in less than a year. Honored representatives, Cathara began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. 6 months ago, my people were dying. The Vorthak Empire had come to our world without warning. They killed our civilians, destroyed our cities, and tortured our children for sport. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many species had suffered under Vorthak attacks, but few survivors had ever lived to speak about it publicly. We sent a distress call into space, Cathara continued. We did not know if anyone would hear it. We did not know if anyone would care. We only knew that we were about to become extinct, and we wanted someone, somewhere, to remember that we had existed. She paused and looked around the vast chamber. The humans heard our call. They did not ask what we could give them in return. They did not demand territory or resources. They simply came to help. In the human section of the chamber, Admiral Rivera sat quietly in his dress uniform. Next to him, Captain Chen listened to the translation with a slight smile. Behind them sat other human representatives, including Captain Vasquez and Major Thompson. The humans arrived outnumbered 2-1, Cathara said. They faced an empire that had conquered dozens of worlds, but they did not hesitate. They fought with a courage and determination that none of us had ever seen before. Chancellor Vrexta, the reptilian leader of the Hegemony Coalition, leaned forward in his chair. Ambassador Cathara, we have all heard reports about human military capabilities, but what we want to know is their intentions. What do the humans want from the galaxy? Cathara looked directly at the Chancellor. They want nothing. That is what makes them so dangerous to empires like the Vorthak, and so valuable to species like mine. Surely they must want something, insisted Councillor Yethan from the Traders' Federation. No species fights wars for free. You are wrong, said a new voice from the chamber entrance. Everyone turned to see Captain Sarah Chen walking down the central aisle. She had not been scheduled to speak, but the council rules allowed any species to address the assembly. I was the first human to receive the Zilani distress call, Chen said as she reached the speaking platform. My government asked me the same question you are asking now. What did we want in return for helping the Zilani? She looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces. The answer was simple. We wanted the killing to stop. We wanted the children to be safe. We wanted justice for the murdered and hope for the survivors. But Captain Chen, said Chancellor Vrexta carefully, surely your species expects some form of compensation. Territory, perhaps? Trade agreements? Military alliances? Chen shook her head. We offered the Zilani a new world within human space where they would be safe. We asked for nothing in return except the promise that they would help us identify other species that needed protection. The chamber fell silent. This was not how galactic politics usually worked. Species did not help each other without expecting something back. In the past 6 months, Chen continued, we have received over 300 distress calls from across the galaxy. Some are from species under Vorthak attack. Others are from civilizations threatened by different empires. All of them heard what happened at Zephyria, and they decided to trust us with their survival. Councillor Yethan looked uncomfortable. 300 species. Captain, that is more than we have in this entire council. Surely you cannot help them all. We are trying, Chen said simply. We have ships protecting 12 systems right now. We have treaty negotiations with 18 more species. And we are hunting down Vorthak war criminals across 3 sectors of space. Admiral Rivera stood up from his seat. If I may address the council? The Chancellor nodded, and Rivera walked to join Chen at the speaking platform. Honored representatives, Rivera began. I commanded the fleet that liberated Zephyria. I have seen what the Vorthak Empire does to innocent people. I have walked through their torture facilities and read their research notes. I have held dying children who had been used as test subjects. His voice remained calm, but everyone in the chamber could hear the steel beneath his words. The Vorthak Empire claimed to be the strongest military force in the galaxy. They had hundreds of ships and thousands of years of conquest experience. It took us less than 4 days to destroy their entire fleet structure. Are you threatening this council? Asked Chancellor Vrexta. No, Rivera said. I am making you an offer, the same offer we made to every species that has contacted us. If you are peaceful, if you protect your civilians, if you treat other species with respect, then you have nothing to fear from humanity. But if you prey on the innocent, if you enslave or torture or murder for sport, then you will face the same Fate is the Vorthak. Cathara stepped forward again. The humans saved my people when no one else would help. They did not come as conquerors or colonizers. They came as protectors, and they stayed as friends. Where are your people now? Asked a voice from the rear of the chamber. Safe, Cathara replied. On a beautiful world called Haven in human space. We are rebuilding our civilization, raising our children, and learning to trust the future again. Some of my people work with human ships now, helping to identify other species that need rescue. We do this because we want to give others the same hope that humanity gave us. The session continued for several more hours. Representatives asked questions about human technology, military doctrine, and political structure. The humans answered, honestly, hiding nothing about their capabilities or intentions. When the formal session ended, Captain Chen found herself surrounded by dozens of alien representatives. All of them wanted the same thing: protection for their people and justice for their enemies. Captain, said a small, furry creature from the Peaceful Worlds Alliance, my people have been threatened by raiders for years. The Council says there is nothing they can do. Would humanity help us? Chen looked down at the being with kind eyes. Send us your coordinates and a description of the threat. We will have ships there within a week. Just like that? The creature asked in amazement. Just like that, Chen confirmed. Later that evening, Admiral Rivera and Captain Chen sat in their hotel room reviewing the day's events. The window looked out over the lights of Nexus Prime's capital city. Do you think we are doing the right thing? Chen asked. Taking on the role of galactic protectors? Rivera was quiet for a moment. Sarah, 6 months ago a dying species called out into the dark and asked for heroes. Today 300 other species are doing the same thing. As long as they keep calling, we will keep answering. Even if it means fighting wars on a dozen different fronts? Especially then, Rivera said. Because that is who we are. That is what makes us human. On the other side of the galaxy, in a small shelter on the world of Haven, Cathara was reading bedtime stories to a group of Zilani children. These were children who had been born after the rescue, who would grow up knowing safety and hope instead of fear and desperation. Tell us the story about the signals again, asked a young boy with bright green skin. Cathara smiled. Once upon a time when our people were in great danger, we sent a message to the stars. We asked if there were any good beings out there who might help us. And do you know what happened? The humans came, said all the children together. That is right, Cathara said. The humans came, and they taught us that no matter how dark things seem, someone is always listening, someone always cares, and help is always possible. Outside the shelter, human patrol ships moved silently through the night sky, keeping watch over their newest friends. The distress call that had started it all was still traveling through space, reaching new worlds and new species every day. And everywhere it went, it carried the same message. If you call for help, someone will answer.